If you're a fan of the co-op in COD games over the last 3 years, you might have noticed a worrying trend. With approximately 1 year of development, Treyarch managed to produce Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War Zombies, their cooperative component, which was an awesome experience with a lot of replay value. But then the next year, with only a fraction of that time, approximately 6 months apparently, a portion of that Zombies team was then tasked to produce Vanguard Zombies, which lacked a lot of the replayability and interest of Cold War. Then most recently, Infinity Ward, with 3 years to produce Modern Warfare 2, has released its Spec Ops Mode at launch, which includes just 3 simple and straightforward missions, which according to them should take you like half an hour to 45 minutes to complete in total. You play it once and then never again. So what the heck has Infinity Ward been doing for the last 3 years? Have they just totally given up on co-op entirely? Well, the answer is actually surprisingly no, and that they've been working on something with apparently just as much depth as the Zombies mode in Treyarch games, and I can't wait to talk about it thanks to today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by Manscaped.com, the global brand for men's grooming and hygiene products, where Manscaped hooked me up with a bunch of stuff from their all-in-one performance package 4.0, highlighted by the Lawnmower 4.0 body trimmer. It's all electric, waterproof with advanced skin-safe technology that reduces nicks and cuts on the most sensitive region of your body. It comes with a super simple wireless charging dock, as well as with a locking feature. Press the button 3 times, and you don't have to worry about it going off when it's in your bag during travel. Included within the package, you also get the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver Ball Toner Spray. Yes, those are real things, and they're awesome. You also get a useful wireless nose hair trimmer, as well as 2 free gifts along with the package itself, a handy Manscaped travel bag, as well as a pair of anti-chafe boxers. Manscaped is offering their Performance Package 4.0 for 20% off right now, with free international shipping and 2 free gifts included by using my code ZombiesHQ at the link down in the description. Thanks to Manscaped for sponsoring this video, and remember, their motto exists for a reason: always use the right tools for the job. When it comes to co-op experiences in COD games, it's clear that Treyarch is king. Although their last example in Vanguard Zombies may not have been their greatest work, clearly Zombies is the best of co-op in COD, and it has been for a very long time. So you'd be forgiven if you hopped into Modern Warfare 2, hopped into one of these simple, straightforward 10-minute Spec Ops missions, got constantly flashbanged by the bugged out visuals on this dome, and said, as I initially did, well, Infinity Ward just doesn't care about co-op. They obviously didn't put any effort into it in this game. It's a shame, because that's what I personally enjoy, but oh well, it's Infinity Ward. They like MP and Warzone. They don't care about co-op. But that's because, and what I would assume is a very Activision-esque move, because there will be no new Call of Duty game next year in 2023. Infinity Ward has had to spread out some of the main features of COD Modern Warfare 2 beyond just the launch of the game itself in order to actually have a decent amount of content to release over this game's 2-year life cycle. That means that the main feature, the meat and potatoes of the co-op mode here in Modern Warfare 2 hasn't even released yet, that it didn't actually release with the game's release, which is just so odd, because that main co-op feature of this game isn't Spec Ops, it's something called raids. If you're a Destiny fan, you're used to that term. If you're like a RuneScape fan, you'd also be used to that term, where officially Infinity Ward has only released 1 sentence about what this mode is, where they said that raids will be a 3-player cooperative engagement or mission or experience requiring teamwork and strategic puzzle-solving thinking in between bouts of intense combat. Basically, you and your 2 friends will enter into some kind of map with certain objectives to complete, with the game apparently not telling you exactly how to complete them. It requires some puzzle solving in between battles with AI enemies in order to complete those objectives. It sounds oddly like what main Easter eggs have been like in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Essentially, you're replacing zombies with just AI soldiers, but the idea that you're given objectives and you have to problem solve in order to complete them is basically the same as zombies. Now, initially when I heard this, since the release of Modern Warfare 2, it got me a little bit concerned. Because if you look at the quality of the rest of COD Modern Warfare 2, while players are pretty happy with the multiplayer, a lot of the content, a lot of the maps is simply reused from the upcoming Warzone 2 map, and the amount of depth in the already released Spec Ops mode leaves a lot to be desired. But apparently Infinity Ward is dedicated to making raids extremely unique and with a lot of depth. We don't know that because Infinity Ward has told us that. The only information we know about raids has come from leakers, with notorious leaker Tom Henderson sharing even before the game's release some of the details of the very first raid mission, firstly indicating that it will likely be set on its very own map, not derived from the campaign and Warzone like so much of the content in Modern Warfare 2 is. And on that map, which is apparently rumored to be a submarine base, two of the main puzzles or steps to this raid that have been leaked so far. The first vague one has to do with some kind of number combination. The second one, which has more detail, has to do with an underwater maze and sharing oxygen tanks with your teammates within the raid itself, all while underwater. Now, that does sound pretty exciting, and it likely will require some kind of communication with your teammates in order to not totally just run out of oxygen down there. It also makes me a little bit terrified for anybody that doesn't have two buddies with mics that can communicate. You try to do a raid in a public match, it probably ain't gonna go too hot, just similar to the way it goes in Zombies. But if this is the kind of thinking that Infinity Ward is doing with these missions, that you will have to communicate with teammates, that there is some interesting kinds of steps to these raids that you haven't really seen in Call of Duty before, that's honestly a great thing. One of the things that kind of stuck out to me about the Spec Ops in Modern Warfare 2 is how uninspired it is. Defend this objective, retrieve these things, and return it to an extraction zone. Not really that unique, not really that interesting. Raids is just the opposite of that. Unique and interesting. Something that cooperative modes in COD games need in order to be replayable, in order to create interest. Black Ops Cold War was that. It was so different and interesting compared to the zombies that came before it. Not to say it was better, but it definitely wasn't worse in my opinion, that players that didn't even play zombies before took to it. Vanguard suffered from probably the exact opposite problem, that Vanguard was too similar to some of the systems in Cold War that players saw it for what it was, a round-based outbreak hybrid that just didn't work. But the last part of the release of raids that is just very confusing is when we're actually going to see it in-game. And that's because obviously here at launch, it isn't in the game. We have the 3 Spec Ops missions. It's not even going to be released into the game on the release of Warzone 2 at the start of Season 1. Instead, the tentative release date we have for the very first raid mission is the start of Season 1 Reloaded, likely to release on December 14th of this year, so still a month and a half away. The main feature, the bulk of the co-op content in Modern Warfare 2 won't even be in the game until a month and a half after launch. As for why Infinity Ward is delaying releasing it for so long, it could be that it's not ready yet, that they require more time than the 3 years they've had to work on something like this. It could be that, as I've heard some people on Twitter discussing, that it could be like Bungie's raids, where they don't release it right after the release of the DLC or the game. They give it a few weeks to let players level up, and then they release it once players are more leveled, have more gear, and actually can take on the difficulty that the raids require. I personally don't really buy that either, as there's less of an RPG element, less of a required progression element, especially in co-op in Modern Warfare 2. We can't really compare it to games like Destiny in that way. And then there's obviously the third reason, which is probably the most likely, that they simply want to pad out the year's content by drip feeding it to the community over time. Infinity Ward has 2 full years of support they were required to fill up for this game, which is a pretty daunting task that has really never been done in full in a COD game before. And I wonder if this trend will only continue in the next COD game scheduled to be released, which is Treyarch's game in 2024, where instead of just providing all of the main content, everything they have ready for the game at launch, they're going to drip feed it to us just like they will in Modern Warfare 2, where maybe they'll do what they did in Black Ops Cold War, release 1 round-based map into the game at launch, but they'll delay releasing something that they now see as fundamental, such as Outbreak until maybe Season 1, maybe Season 1 Reloaded, a main feature of the game that's largely complete, just being delayed in order to space out the release of content because of that 2-year support time frame for the DLC. Either way, while Raids does sound interesting and it does sound fairly unique, it doesn't sound like it'll unseat zombies as the king of co-op experiences, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. The way the community and the player base as a whole reacts to new content is very hit or miss. Could be exciting and replayable just as Zombies is, or it could just be play it once and never again, just like the 3 Spec Ops missions that Infinity Ward released into the game at launch. I'd love to know your initial impressions of what raids could be like in Modern Warfare. I'll also leave some links in the description as to sources for this video and all the information about raids that we know of so far. I will say, as to the sponsor of this video from earlier, Manscaped, I've never gotten so many requests from friends as to a product that's sponsoring a video before than the last time I did a Manscaped sponsorship. Guys want this stuff, and if you do too, link is down in the description. But I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you sometime again soon. Peace.